afford to stay. And for our students, at least, sometimes that's a matter of a student coming to my office or coming to the office of somebody who works for me at the end of the semester and saying, I'm $500 short, I can't finish, I can't pay the rest of my term bill for next semester. We've been raising money against that very problem. So public access to public education for people who would not have access to public higher education in other contexts, for us, is an extremely important question. 12% of our students come from the bottom 20% of the socioeconomic structure. They are very threatened by the crisis in a way that other students obviously are not. A third of our students are the first person in their family to attend any form of higher education. More than half our students identify themselves as non-white. 80% of our students are on some form of financial aid. And I think I could demonstrate that more than half our students are bilingual, and in many, many languages. When I say that, sometimes to audiences, they say, oh yeah, Spanish. But that's actually not the case. It's many, many languages. All of those students represented in those percentages are the people most threatened. Their education, their opportunities are most threatened by the changing ratio between tuition and state subsidy. And we have a low percentage of out-of-state students, so we can't use that additional tuition to make up the difference, although we're going to try. So I would say, actually, to know how bad things are in any public research university, you really only need to have, and I'm simplifying, obviously, you really need to have only 3 numbers. You need to know what the state subsidy income is, you need to know what the tuition income is, and you need to know what other sources there might be to close the gap between the two. And every university is talking about what kinds of tools we can use to close that gap. So the first problem that is presaged by the crisis, it seems to me, is to maintain our mission as servants of the public, by which I mean not only our students who come from our states, but also the public at large, because it's their families that will benefit from and the state that will benefit from the education of the students. That seems to me the highest priority, is to maintain the educational mission. The second problem, it seems to me, and we haven't mentioned this very much, also arises from declining state support and a reliance on tuition. And that is the potential political pressure that will be mounted against the research mission of the university. I think we can predict, not as a matter only of economy, but simply as practical politics, a decline in federal research dollars over the next several years. Now, universities are addicted to federal research dollars. When the stimulus money first became available, I said to a lot of my colleagues in the sciences, you ought to think of yourself as standing on a street corner and you're about to be approached by a drug pusher. And he's going to say, just take one shot and it'll be fine. But the money's going to go away, and deficits are going to become important to politics. That's where our research mission has been supported, but we can also imagine that parents and taxpayers are going to start looking very, very carefully at the research mission. And we are not really prepared rhetorically. I'm not saying that this will be a valid criticism, but we're not prepared rhetorically to defend against the kinds of attacks that we might suffer. I had lunch today with a colleague from the University of Iowa, and she told me, and you may have read about this, that in Iowa, the state legislature is looking to abolish sabbaticals, eliminate them entirely, because it is said they're a boondoggle. What do people do? They go on vacation. Now, historians who go on sabbatical know that we do other things besides when we go on sabbatical, then go on vacation. We write books, we contribute to scholarship, and we also continue to work on the educational mission of the university and preparing the courses and so on. But you can well imagine that what underlies that is skepticism about the value of research, and that is driven by what is obviously what we're now referring here to as the crisis of public higher education. By the way, this erosion of the research mission, along with the erosion of the educational mission, seems to me is also compounded by the lure to which most of us have at least made some concession, of hiring more adjunct faculty. And the labor crisis in our universities, which over the long term is going to lead us to a weird paradox, and this is happening in the privates too, and actually in some of the privates faster than in the publics. We're going to have a very small research-oriented faculty that will be highly compensated and have tenure, and a very large teaching faculty that will be poorly compensated and not have tenure. And if we go back and look at the history of this, of course, tenure was created to protect teachers and not researchers. But I think that there's an economic lure, as any dean knows, to hire adjuncts, hire 4 adjuncts instead of 1 assistant professor. I've tried to resist that, but I'm sure any of the other deans will agree that that's sometimes hard to do. And that leads to a third problem. So the first problem is the erosion of the educational mission. The second problem is the erosion of the research mission. The third problem, it seems to me, is the differential consequences of the first two for the liberal arts and sciences as against other sets of discipline. I think history and the liberal arts and sciences are going to suffer more in this circumstance. I'm sure you all read. I certainly heard about it repeatedly from members of my language departments about the end of French at SUNY Albany. This is something that's that lots of deans are thinking about, even if they're not doing it as maladroitly as it was done at SUNY Albany. The pressure to increase professional school enrollments and to use that tuition from the university and to treat the arts and sciences as a service to the professional schools, whether it's business or engineering or other things. The increase, and this is, by the way, attractive even inside the arts and sciences, where, at least at my university, where pure math was at the center of what our math department did for many years, there's an impulse, even in our math department, to think about applied math, and our math department now runs a master's in mathematics and finance, which makes us quite a lot of money. And of course, that's one of the kinds of impulses that the crisis generates, is find master's programs that make money, because we all in this room know that PhD programs are actually the lost leaders of public service, public higher education and private higher education as well. So I think that those 3 problems taken together are serious. In the long run, the decline of state support and the replacement of state support by tuition, it seems to me, is going to lead to further erosion of public access, of the teacher-scholar ideal with which some of us in this room were reared, and the foundational nature of the liberal arts and sciences. And we haven't said much about the privates, and I just want to say a few words about the privates. I spent actually a lot of my career in private institutions. And the task of leading a private institution and the task of leading a public institution are almost 2 different jobs. There are many problems in common, but it does seem to me that the privates are faced, and I don't want to minimize the problems that the privates face, because they have their own sets of issues, but they're completely different problems. I have to say that I have been disappointed by the presidents of the private research universities, and I know they're all concerned with their own particular versions of this crisis. But